After fiercely fighting that this memo not be disclosed or that the names be redacted from this memo, today, February 2nd, Friday, it was released to the public. I'm going to have lots of links in the description box with loads of information which I'm about to share with you, which this memo does not explicitly say, but that all of these things are directly linked to the people named in this document. Now, these articles, which, if the underlying documents were produced, would offer facts. And I think that we should really press, as Judicial Watch is, to see what the underlying information was that had this memo come to its decision. But as you'll see, some of these were leaked to the media outlets over time, which were to bolster the coup to, oust President Trump. So we have to talk about the actors that were involved and mentioned in this memo. Now remember, just the other day, FBI Director Wray suggested that the names be redacted from this memo. Again, links in the description box for all of this information, and so that you can directly read this. I'm just picking it apart at some highlights here. So the FBI and the DOJ obtained one initial FISA warrant targeting Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals from the FISC. As required by the statutes, FISA order is an American citizens must be renewed every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. Then, the Director Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI Director, and Deputy McCabe signed one, and then Sally Yates signed one, Dana Bonte signed one, and Rod Rosenstein each signed one or more of these FISA applications. Let's take a look at Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe was in office in that position from February 1st, 2016, after being promoted, until recently, January 29th, after the attention from the White House and the Republican members of Congress, it says in Wikipedia. Take Wikipedia for what it's worth, which is sometimes not much. The fact of the matter was that McCabe was compromised with his wife taking over $400,000 to run for office, and it was only upon having to recuse himself days before the 2016 election that he did so. There's going to be a lot more coming out about McCabe because there's speculation that he even instructed FBI agents to change 302 reports. We have the former acting Attorney General Sally Yates, who in an op-ed pointed out the handling of Watergate scandal as an example how administration surrendered to the rule of law when it was at fault, a hint that she was unhappy with the Trump administration's handling of multiple probes into Russia. You remember Yates as who Trump had fired for not doing her job and enforcing the travel ban. And yes, that was her job. Now you'll note the dates of when these articles were published, and as we see more information being divulged in the future, it's this information that needs to be tied in to hold these people accountable. She quotes, Sally Yates quotes, "This wall of separation is what ensures the public can have confidence that the criminal process is not being used as a sword to go after one political enemies or as a shield to protect those in power." Really, Sally? It's what separates us from an autocracy, she wrote. I mean, the projection on the left is pathological. Finally, Yates warned against political arguments that are steeped in emotion and fear through polarizing rhetoric and fabrications, if that isn't the pot calling the kettle black, okay? She added that although the public cannot control what lawmakers preach, they can hold elected officials accountable for their words. And that, Sally, we are going to do. So she says, so stand up, speak out. Our country needs all of us to raise our collective voices in support of our, let's just scratch out, democratic ideals and institutions and put in the law. This is what we stand for. No, Sally, this is what we stand for. She says, that is who we are. No, Sally, this is who we are. And she says, with a shared commitment to our founding principles, which they have no principles except lying and deception, this is who we will remain. And yes, that is who they will remain. And they show that time and time again. Of course, and then we have Rosenstein. Rosenstein, who, we're going to talk more about in just a second. But it will be important to note what his role was in the firing of James Comey. And then Dana Bonte, who in the media, again, was used to suggest that Trump ousted the U.S. attorney. I wonder if these people just started stepping down because they saw the writing on the wall. Because you had mainstream media using every opportunity for all of these named actors to be somehow martyred as some sort of Trump sacrifice. But now, lo and behold, we see the names, and maybe we understand why things transpired as they did. Okay, so on October 21st, 2016, the DOJ and FBI sought and received FISA probable cause order not under Title VII, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page. Now, that's important to keep in mind because this is when they started doing their hit pieces. They started doing their hit pieces earlier on. Information was leaked to media about what they were trying to roll out, how they were trying to make everyone start thinking a certain way so that they would follow along what they were creating. And then a lot of speculation about how there was these conspiracies about how there's some sort of Russian collusion with Comey. It makes one wonder what his affiliations really are when at the same time he is authorizing all of these FISAs. And we'll get to why, even though there's a spin right now going on to try and say it was Papadopoulos, okay? But Comey at this same time reopens the email investigation for Clinton. Boy, it seems like Comey was just starting a lot of different controversies on every end, doesn't it? I don't know why that would really kind of just start crumbling our political structure, right? That's not something the Russians would want, right? So now let's go back to Rosenstein, okay? And the fact that everyone was trying to hold Trump, impeach him because he fired Comey. Well, let's see what Rosenstein states. Again, links in the description box. This is all, documented information. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein told members of Congress that he knew President Trump planned to fire FBI Director James Comey before he wrote a memo that the White House had cited to justify the termination. On May 8th, I learned that President Trump intended to remove Director Comey and sought my advice and input. Notwithstanding my personal affection for Director Comey, I thought it was appropriate to seek a new leader, Rosenstein said in his opening comments in a private briefing with both the House and the Senate this week. According to statements he released, the next day, May 9th, the president fired Comey, and the White House cited Rosenstein's memo to justify that decision. So we have Rosenstein, who is an actor, signing off on these FISA memos, or FISA warrants, right, who then is instructing and encouraging President Trump to fire Comey. Boy, that doesn't seem to be a conflict at all, does it? No, it doesn't. And so I'm glad the memo was released, but for everything it says, it doesn't say a lot too, okay? So, and it kind of explains that here, where it says, due to the sensitive nature of foreign intelligence activity, FISA submissions, including renewals before the FISA, are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard, particularly as it relates to surveillance amongst American citizens. Obviously, that's not true. Obviously, the media gets leaked information. And we see that time and time again, right? I'm pointing it out. I'll show you another one in just a second. However, the FISA's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by a 90-day renewal of surveillance orders, is necessary dependent on the government's production to the court of all material and relevant facts. This should include information potentially favorable to the targets of FISA. And they obviously know, the media knows who the targets are because they're bolstering their cases for them while this investigation is going on. They're throwing people under the bus that they know they're supposed to, they're being told to. Application that is known by the government. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the FISA to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts that were being published by the media before this was even occurring. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. Again, links in the description box. September 23rd, 2016. We start seeing with Politico magazine, Mysteries of Trump's Man in Moscow. Okay, that's a great article. And note the dates. So much is going on. September, October 2016. And the media is just continued through this whole time for up to months to be biased against Trump. And if you deny this, here's a great article here. It says, and they try to spin this, and they're going to spin this too. It's so important to know that. Over the last several months, in an effort to delegitimize Mueller's investigation, which we now know is largely based on this FISA, which is based on nothing, which is based on lies. Republicans have floated a succession of pseudo-outrages or conspiracy theories purporting to reveal Mueller as the FBI to be fatally biased. I think we've proved that. I think we've proved that whenever the Strzok text messages came out. It's not just, is it conspiracy truth now? Can we say this? This is from the intelligence. Link in the description box, right? The pace at which these theories have appeared is accelerating. Well, no, it's the facts at which these theories are proven were accelerating. In October, Republicans in Congress began to excitedly discuss a 2009 uranium deal, which they portrayed as a Clintonian conspiracy covered up by the FBI, and it was. And they think because they say this, quote, parentheses, it was in fact largely innocuous and did not involve Hillary Clinton. Are they like on crack? Do they not? They don't follow facts, obviously. Shortly afterwards, they began to fixate on the role of the firm that hired Christopher Steele to investigate Trump's connections to Russia during the campaign, a pattern they bizarrely twisted to conclude that the FBI had been manipulated by Russia. Well, when you have the FBI Director Comey opening up investigations on Clinton, at the same time he's signing off on FISAs and creating all this, he had the power to make the correct decisions and say, no, that's bullshit. That's not based on anything. We're not signing off on that. And we're going to continue with the investigation on the facts that we have about Clinton, and we're not going to close it earlier. He had that power. And obviously there was some sort of maybe struggle within that he was going through. Who knows? Who knows if we'll ever find out. But of course we have these great people like Newsweek who produce articles all the time, who give facts, from their sources, from their undisclosed sources. We need to start getting names. Every time they say, these people that produce such information needs to give names. So while in the memo here, they conclude that the FISA application notes the Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS as principal. Glenn Simpson, who was paid by U.S. law firm Perkins Coie, representing the DNC, even though it was known by the DOJ at the time that the political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf and paid by the DNC Clinton campaign, which was, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the same information. The thing is, and I've said this before, when people lie, and all these people lie, how do you believe any of it? How do you know what to believe? Because they're all liars. So now we have the memo stating that Steele was paid over $160,000, by the DNC and the Clinton campaign. That's okay, but guess what? We also know that over $1 million was paid out. And even there are other reports saying more. Who are the other people that were being paid? Why do we just have one name? Why? Why do we just have one name? We need a dozen more names. Who are they? Who are they? Well, they do go on to mention a couple more names. They name the then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, who was a senior Department of Justice official who worked closely with Yates and then Rosenstein. Okay? You've heard his name come up in the past too, haven't you? Yeah. Well, Steele had admitted to Orr his feelings against Trump, and he had said he was desperate that Donald Trump did not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. I mean, who cares? Some of these facts in here, I wonder what, it doesn't matter if you don't like someone. That's not a crime. But what is a crime is colluding and making up information to get warrants to invade people's privacy. And then we have this indisputable, intertwining of all these people. Orr's wife, who was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of the opposition research on Trump. That was his wife, who was employed by Fusion GPS. Something else that wasn't disclosed, according to the memo. In continuing with just overlap of names, this Price Strap, who was the assistant director of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, was apparently someone that James Comey hand-selected back in December of 2015. And yes, this memo mentions Papadopoulos. It says clearly that the advisor George Papadopoulos, but there was no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. So Page, who, they're trying to investigate, and then they're saying that it has something to do with Papadopoulos. They're saying here that there's no conspiracy between them. And then they say that the Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of FBI counterintelligence investigation in late July 2016 by the FBI agent Peter Strzok. So now, you have people like The Hill who are now saying that the whole reason why it was open was because it wasn't even because of the dossier, it was because of Papadopoulos. But there's totally skipping over who opened this. It was opened by Peter Strzok, the FBI agent Peter Strzok, who, I need another 30 minutes to go through what his involvement is, and I think anybody listening still follows that already. Okay? The Hill and everyone else needs to refocus back on their concept of, furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISA without the Steele dossier information. They just totally disregard that. And now in the continuation, up until the very moment, the harassment against President Trump and this attempt to remove him from office continues. Top Democrats warned President Trump today that using the GOP drafted memo as any pretext to Justice Department officials could spark a constitutional crisis. Yeah, that's right. Pelosi and Schumer are just forging ahead. They penned a scathing letter to the commander-in-chief warning him against the dismissing of Attorney General Rosenstein or interfering with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe. How dare he remove the actors who are lying and conniving after giving them over a year to prove anything, which clearly they have proved nothing. Except for the fact that the DNC and the lunatic leftists have been trying to unconstitutionally unseat a democratically elected president of the United States, which is treason for all of them.